I just don't see how, if thinking about it now, that being a part of, him being a part of it and everything, how we were able to just never mention it. I know Bubba and them would be really glad. Well, have you heard from him again?
I haven't called him in a couple. I guess it's been a couple of weeks, but I still wonder how people that knew, which were you and Mother, could never say anything
Never
or
even
try to comfort me or anything.
I know it. I don't. It's just like if you didn't talk about it, it wasn't there. That was some kind of. That's what I'm talking about being dysfunctional. That was just the most dysfunctional thing. And I know how much it hurt me the whole time, and how much every time I thought about it, it hurt me, and I cried about it. And if I had just grieved with you, I mean, I grieved by myself, and you grieved by yourself. And if I had just grieved with you, it would have made it. You would have at least known that it hurt me too. Not that I could have done anything about it or made it go away, but I mean, all those years that my heart ached about it, and I never said anything.
But it was just horrible. I couldn't understand how Mother or you could care anything about me or him and me just be isolated like that.
Well, I don't know. And then I think about Mother that was in her own grandchild. I mean, I don't see how we just went on, just life went on. And just like, that was just like when Rusty was killed, and we just went on. All I knew to do was to do the next thing, and that's what we did. And so Bubba felt like we didn't care about him, because we all just went on. Or that's the way I did. That's the only way I ever knew to do was just do the next thing, next party, or do the next thing, and then it would just go away. And I remember him saying they don't care about us. They don't care about us because they haven't grieved. And that was the worst grief of my life was when Rusty died. But I just never would grieve with anybody or publicly. And I guess that's just like definitely not a normal trait. Is the only thing I'm saying. Don't ask me how I got that way, but I just never would let anybody know that I was grieving. But I mean, all those years that we couldn't have done anything about it, but at least we could have all grieved together.
Yeah, but we didn't, and therefore I felt like nobody cared about us, me and my son.
I did. I can't speak for Mother, but I did, and what I hope for now is that we just are able to go on from there and give me, and we just are able that you will be able to heal. I mean, I have some healing knowing that Michael was adopted and had a home and family, but it's sort of bittersweet because
He should have been with me.
yeah, as you look back on that, that's just like Willis told me. He said, "Mother, I can't believe you had any part in something like that." He said, "I just cannot believe that you had any part in it." I said, "Well, it seemed like to me at the time we did it that we all thought it was the right thing to do."
But it was just so horrible, and nobody. I had to suffer like it never happened.
No, and it was just like if we didn't talk about it, that it had never happened, and that's the worst thing.
had to come back to your house that night when I came back from New Orleans.
That didn't make sense at all.
She brought me right back there to where your baby was. And just because you were married, you got to keep yours, and I didn't.
Well, if we had known, that's like I have this friend of mine at church, and her daughter, baby for adoption, and she hadn't been, she's gone through the same thing you have, and my friend told me, she said, if I had known she said, we told Beth that she ought to keep the baby, but she said, if I'd known the effect it was going to have on her, we would have just insisted that she did. And some people can give up a child for adoption, or they can have an abortion, and some women just can't, Charlotte. Some women are just not able to do it. I don't see how you've done as well as you have all these years. But what I hope for you is that you can heal that you can just go forward and put it behind you so that you'll be whole and unfragmented for Mark and Michael and for yourself. Those things, if I could go back and change any of that, I'd do it. I would gladly, if there was any way I could go back and change it, I would more than gladly do it. But we can't. We can't go back. So this is today. You have a lot of years ahead of you. You found your son, and you have Mark. And I want you to be, Charlotte, you can be happy. You can, in spite of a tragic past like that, people come out of it. I'm not making light of it. I'm just saying that it is possible for you to come out of it and be. Because we just can't change it.
But it's just so unreal that I had to live that, and he did too.
To be able to be a friend to any kind of friend to him or have a relationship, try to just say that was, you just, every time you think about it, just say, well, it was something that we can't change. It was a tragedy, as sad as it was, we can't change it, but you have today, and you found him, and you have Mark, and you just have so much today.
So whose decision was that? Mother's?
So much of that I just can't remember. I just remember one thing when Mother called me down there that night when I said the first thing we have to do is just find out if you really are pregnant. We can't just assume that you are. You have to go to a doctor, and then we can maybe get some advice from somebody. And that doctor, I took you to Mark Blades, and he said you had some other your options were to have it and raise it, or to go through an adoption agency. And then from then on, I don't remember. I don't remember how it went from then on. I don't know if we left it up to you, or I don't remember anything else. I don't know if he gave us the name of some, I don't know. It seems like he gave us the name of several places. I thought that was a Baptist place. You said it was voluntary. I thought it was a Methodist or a Baptist.
But all I remember is Mother was just determined I wasn't going to have a baby and disgrace her. No matter what it took, an abortion or whatever.
And I just can't remember much more. I just remember when the baby was born, and I just didn't, at that point in time, I just didn't see how we could let him go. That's when I begged him to let us just bring him there and say that I had adopted him as Mother. That was the only way Mother would, that there was some way we could have done it. I just told him, I said, I'll just say that I've adopted him for a minute. And of course, we were just struggling with two little babies, and he just said, well, I don't. He just said we came. He didn't say any. He didn't let me any. He just said we came. And through the years, I've been bitter about that.
But do you see how unreal that is? For me to just hand you over my child because I wasn't married?
I know.
That's not rational. Oh. So Tim doesn't know anything?
I think he knew that you had a baby. He knew. Willis might have. I don't know. He knew that way back years ago. He knew that you did. I think, Charlotte. I think when Mark said something to Willis, they asked me about it, and I just told him that it happened, that it was the thing that was forced on us, that your mother made us. Two grown women seemed like we could have stood up to them.
Yeah.
I was afraid, I was kind of afraid about Tim that he would tell Leslie, because he tell him not to tell something. Sometimes he does, and I didn't know if you wanted anybody to know, Charlotte. I mean, I was glad to know. I was just really glad to know, because all through these years, for 30 years, it has been a heartache for me, and I thought about it, and I've had this fantasy that every house I've ever lived in, I've opened the door, and a young man was standing there and would say, I'm Charlotte's son. I don't, how in the world would he have found me? And I shoot, but I've just always thought someday that we'd find him, or he'd find us, or something.
Well, it's not at the point where I want anybody else involved in it. Me and him.
Well, I think that's wise. I think, or however you want to do it.
He doesn't know me, and I mean, it seems strange that I have to get to know my own son and have him feel comfortable with me.
Well, I'm just thankful to God that things have come this far. That it just seems like it was all miracle the way you found it. When once you started the search, everything worked out the way it did, and he was so receptive. And Charlotte, I want you to get better. I want you to be able to look at it as a blessing. Just that it's not, there's something wrong with it when there's just excessive crying. It is not, and it's not going to help you any physically or mentally or emotionally. I want you to be strong. I know that's hard for me to say, but if you have to go into a counselor or whatever it takes, I know your insurance would pay for it. You just need a really good counselor, somebody that can help you get through this and heal and put it behind you. I don't know how to help you. If I could, I would, but you need somebody to help you because the hurt is just too much, and excessive crying is just one symptom of something that's not healthy. Is there some way you can find you a good counselor?
No. No, I've always helped myself more than anybody else could.
Well, there must be, like that woman that you talked to about, people that have been through this, some kind of support group of people that have, people that have lost children or people that have had a real deep hurt in their life. How come out of it and put it behind them?
Well, you can't ever put it behind you. Think about if it was one of your children.
I know it's a terror. I know. I know. I mean, I don't really know what it's like, but I can just imagine what it was like. But I'm just asking you to forgive me for my part of it. And I don't know how we did it. I absolutely don't know how we did it. But it wasn't because it didn't hurt me or I didn't care. And I can't answer for Mama.
Maybe
Why
it's,
did you ask me if Tim knew about it?
I just didn't know who knew.
Well, I just didn't like, and I just didn't want to, speak lightly of something that was so meant so much to you. So, but Willis had, how Willis is usually he's pretty close now. But he was one of the reasons he was real interested in it because the woman he works with is adopted, and she knows who her birth mother is, and she knows she could contact her anytime, but she won't because she's afraid of rejection. Because
Well, that's a big part of it. That the second time I talked to Mike, he was real confused. And, I mean, I couldn't go to work the next day. I felt rejected by him. I just couldn't go to work. I just stayed home and cried all day. But I later found out that was normal reaction for adopted people, that they feel disloyal to their adopted parent. But but then, they get better about it. But, so it works on both ends. The other one. So, and they don't all work out for the best. Reunions don't understand, but, I was hoping this one would, and it just takes time to build a relationship with, and then the birth parent bears all the guilt. It's not the society of people who are the mother or family members or anyone that has to bear that guilt. It's the birth mother, because she's the only one that was there in that room to sign those papers by herself. So all the guilt goes on her.
well, Charlotte, sometimes it's a set of circumstances that people feel like they don't have any control over, and it's not necessarily you're meant to bear that guilt. When guilt comes on me, I just stand up. I usually feel like it's the devil that reminds me of something that I feel guilty about, and I just say, yes, I did it, and I'm sorry for it, and God knows about it, and you'll have to take it up with Him. And you just can't bear that. To be a whole person today, you just have to let it go. I've done things that grieves me terribly, but I cannot bear yesterday's burdens today. You have today, and you have tomorrow, and you have a lot of years ahead of you to enjoy. But I just wanted to tell you that I love you, and I'm thinking about, I'm praying for you, and I wanted to check on you about your colon, too.
Well, I won't know anything till next week when I go for that visit, so but I can let you know what he says.
Yeah. Well, I'll be anxious to know about Moby too. I guess somebody will let us know about that.
Well, it'll take about a week, I think, won't it,
I don't know.
for the biopsy.
They can usually give them what they call a preliminary report for that day. They can do a preliminary, but then they don't get a final. That's the way we always did in Ohio. They could get a preliminary that day and then a final about 10 days later
Yeah.
or a week later. Everything turns out all right. And I wish you'd think about getting in and going to a support group or something, Charlotte. I mean, I know you've had a lot of things happen to you in your life. And you're at an age when, you know, it's not that easy to just roll things over and keep going. And just find a place of peace with yourself and about that. And forgive me. Please forgive me for my part in it. And if I could go back and do it again, I promise you I would do it differently. But I love you. I guess I better get off this phone.
Okay.
See you later.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.